Cancer Unmasked 360 empowers, educates, and inspires men and women impacted by cancer through authentic conversations with survivors, patients, caregivers, loved ones, advocates, support organizations, and healthcare professionals. My mission is to share stories of hope, resilience, faith, healing, and survivorship while providing encouragement, awareness, and resources so that no one faces the cancer journey alone. The content shared on Cancer Unmasked 360 is for educational and inspirational purposes only. Although some guests may be healthcare professionals, this podcast does not provide personalized medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider regarding your individual health concerns and treatment decisions. Well, welcome to Cancer Unmasked 360, where we uncover the truth about cancer. Today, we're joined by a cancer survivor, Dwayne Perry. Hi, Dwayne.
Hello, Miss Desiree. How are you?
I'm fine, and please call me Desi. I
I'll drop
saved
the
that
miss.
stuff for my mama.
You got it.
Dwayne, I'd like to begin by telling or letting our listeners know, where were you and who were you prior to your cancer diagnosis?
Wow. Um, where was I? I was here in the DMV area where I reside and have lived all my life. I'm a Washingtonian.
All right.
I lived in Washington, D.C. all the way up until 1989. I moved just to Fort Washington, Maryland, and I've been here since. So I was here in the DMV, going about life as usual, just like many folks. When I started to experience some problems that prompted me to get medical attention. And that's how it led to my diagnosis. Who I was prior to that, I'd like to think it's the same person I am today. I'm a husband. I'm a father of two girls. I live a very active lifestyle. I enjoy all kind of outdoor hobbies, including motorcycling, fishing, hunting, things of that nature.
Ooh.
So that kind of sums up who I am.
Wow. Well, that sounds really great. What type of cancer were you diagnosed and what stage were you in?
So I was diagnosed as what's called large B cell lymphoma. Large B cell lymphoma does not have stages. It's
Okay.
a blood cancer, so it does not have stages. And ironically, it is not a cancer that is common to African American men at the age of 50 years old. I was 50 at the time of my diagnosis. It is a
Wow.
cancer that's most often found in 80-year-old white men. And
Wow.
it just so happened that it was found in a tumor in my colon. So I did not have colon cancer. I had a cancerous tumor in my colon, which was diagnosed as large B cell lymphoma. It tends to collect in areas where there's soft tissue, and mine just
Got
happened to
you.
be in my colon.
Okay. How did you find out? I mean, were you like just visiting the doctors and you was feeling bad? How did you come to find out you had cancer?
So I wasn't. It didn't come as a result of a doctor's visit, and
Mhm.
in terms of an annual physical. So I've been very good about annual physicals and things like that. I see my
Good
doctor
for
at least
you.
twice a year on average. What happened with my experience was that I started to have stomach issues, digestive issues, and I had
Oh,
never had any digestive or stomach issues, this, that, and the other. As a matter of fact, I know that I'm going to be ill if I start to have stomach issues. That's always my trigger, even if it's going to be a
uh-huh, you
cold
know your
or
body.
I know my body. So if I
Mhm.
start to have stomach issues, I know it's a 25 virus or something like that coming on. And
Yeah.
uniquely with mine was that it's hard to describe, but I started to have issues with processing food. I had an appetite, I would eat normally, but it just
Right.
seemed like the food would just move through my digestive system so slow. And it
And
got
you could
progressively
literally
worse.
feel that?
I could feel it. I've
Wow.
never had a baby or had contractions, but I try to use that as an example. It's the only thing I can imagine that's close.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
only because when I talked to the doctor about it, he kind of explained it, but it feels like everything just kind of tightens up in your intestines, and
Okay.
then it just gradually kind of just lets off.
Right.
And that's the food trying to pass the tumor in my colon.
Did you experience pain with that
It
symptoms?
wasn't really it was it was pain, but it wasn't like unbearable pain. It was just more
Okay.
discomfort. It was very, very discomforting and very concerning.
Yeah.
I began to worry about it when it didn't pass. And, I did the manly thing. Hey, I grabbed a ginger ale just thinking it was gas or something like that. After a while, that was no longer working anymore. It didn't make me feel any
Right.
better. And then I finally got to the point where um, probably after at least a month, I got to the point where I started not wanting to eat because I did not want to go through feeling that.
Feeling that.
And
Right.
as a result, I kind of lost my appetite. I lost probably 30 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, which I could afford
Quickly
to
you
lose,
lost
but
that weight.
but not in a good way.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So I went to when first the first thing that sent me to I went to urgent care first.
Okay.
Um, I had an episode where after working one evening, I came home, showered and everything, and used the restroom. And I just happened to notice before I, flushed the toilet, I noticed there was some blood in the toilet. And so I
Okay.
was like, okay, wait a minute, something's definitely wrong.
Right.
This particular night was a big night for the family because it was the night before my baby daughter went to college. And so it
Oh,
was a big
wow.
thing. And I had a bunch of family coming over just to celebrate, her send off.
Right.
But when I saw that, I knew I needed immediate attention. So I tipped off to the side and told my wife, and then I went to the urgent care and got checked. Um, as
Wow.
a part of that checkup, the doctor asked me had I had colonoscopy. And I told him I had not had a colonoscopy yet, but I was planning to get it done that year because that was the year I turned 50. I was always under the impression, or I've been told, when you get to the age of 50, that's when you get your first colonoscopy.
Did you find that out to be true? Is that true? I don't know.
So subsequent to me finding out or being asked that, it seemed like the rules kind of changed and it was
Uh-huh.
45 was the recommendation. But
Okay.
I had always
Okay.
been to, even my primary care had told me, 50. He had never said, hey, you need to really have this at 45. And I had been
Mhm.
going to the doctor regularly. So the urgent care doctor, who was a African American gentleman, we were probably
Mhm.
around the same age. He may have been younger.
Okay.
He kind of got angry with like, "Come on, bro, what you doing?" And I'm like, "Hey, man, I was told 50, and this is
Right.
the year I turned 50." So at any rate, he did an examination and he recommended I see um, my doctor to get a colonoscopy. So I made an
Mhm.
appointment, went to see my primary care, told my primary care what was going on, and they were like, "Okay, we need to get you in to see a gastroenterologist."
Okay. So yeah,
So
that's the next step.
yeah, they made a referral for the gastro, and unfortunately, I had to wait like 2 weeks to get an appointment. And
That's the new world we live in now for doctor's appointments. At least it was
yeah,
two.
yeah, I was jacked up for those 2 weeks. So when I finally, as a matter of fact, So we took our daughter to school. I was able to take my daughter to school the next day. Um, and the following weekend was the holiday weekend. I believe it was a Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
Um, that holiday, that Labor Day morning, I got up and went to the emergency room because that's how bad I was feeling. And I
Wow.
went hoping that they would have a gastroenterologist there who could see me.
Uh-huh.
I went, sat in the emergency room all day, only to be told, well, your situation is not emergent. It's not an emergency.
Oh, wow.
So therefore, you have to wait until you get this appointment. So I got the appointment, and I talked to the gastroenterologist. He told me that he wanted me to have the colonoscopy, and I'm like, okay, I knew that was next. So I had to make an appointment to get the colonoscopy, which is still going to be another 2 weeks, at least another 2 weeks. But he was able to give me a medication that helped with all of the cramping and the feelings that I
Okay.
was having. So I was able to get some relief because I got to
Oh,
the point where I couldn't sleep, and it was getting pretty bad.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Let me ask a
So
question.
sure.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go right ahead.
No. So after going to finally getting to have the colonoscopy results showed that there was a tumor in the colon, and the doctor told me that it did look cancerous. He showed me pictures of it and the darkness of
Mhm.
it, but he said he couldn't guarantee it until it had a biopsy. Um,
Right.
they He removed it, removed a couple of polyps, sent it out, and then I got a call about 2 weeks later saying that it was cancerous and it was large B cell lymphoma.
Okay.
Yep.
Take me to the moment where you heard that word cancer. What went through your mind and what emotions did it bring on?
It's I don't know. I think when I first heard it, I was still probably a little numb from the anesthesia coming out of the colonoscopy because I'm sorry, that's when I got that's when the first person said something about cancer, and that was the
Okay.
doctor that did the colonoscopy.
But it wasn't the physical
It
diagnosis. Is
wasn't
that,
the actual diagnosis, right?
yeah,
He
the
said
actual
it could be cancerous.
diagnosis. Right.
And so that was heavy in itself. But then
Mhm.
I had I'm sorry. So the gastroenterologist removed polyps. He did not remove the tumor.
Gotcha.
He the he made an arrangements for me to have the surgery, which is the colon sectional, to have the tumor removed, and then they did the biopsy on the tumor.
Got it.
So I made the arrangements to have the surgery. I had the surgery a few weeks later in October, and then I think a week after my surgery, I remember sitting exactly where I'm sitting right now
Mhm.
in my recliner, recovering from the surgery. I remember getting the call from the doctor, and he said, hey, we've run the biopsy and this, that, and the other, and it turns out that, excuse me, that your tumor was cancerous, and it's what's called large B cell lymphoma. And then he went on to tell me how it was not common for a 50-year-old black male to have it, but
Mhm.
rather an 80-year-old white male. But at any rate, it had to come out.
Right.
you know. So
So how did you feel? The raw emotions, did it make you emotional to tears? Did it just stop you in your tracks? Did you go and tell your wife, right? How were you feeling?
I think I told. I don't know if she was home at the time. I really don't
Mhm.
remember.
Okay.
Um, but I'm sure when I did see her, I'm sure I basically told her. They called back and said it was cancerous. I do remember texting a few of my close friends, my best friend and um, my mother and sister. I remember texting them and kind of letting them know. I didn't break down in tears. I was just kind of like, hey, it is what it is, and
Okay.
we got to get ready to do whatever it is we have to do.
Well, that's
I'd never been
that's
in a
really
hospital
brave.
before. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
never been in a hospital before, never been hospitalized, never had any health issues other than, some cuts and bruises and stitches and that kind of thing.
What
So,
happened when you told your kids? How was that? Was that difficult?
so my oldest, um, she was home. The youngest was away at college. Uh, my oldest is pretty strong, and she's really strong in faith.
Gosh.
And at that time, ironically, at that time, she had had a spiritual awakening and was really starting to understand, her Christian faith, her Christian walk.
Right.
And so she was going through her own little thing as it related to that, who her identity was, what God wanted for her life, so forth and so on. So it just
Mhm.
happened to coincide with my diagnosis. So well, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to come back and say something later.
Okay.
She was basically like, okay, we got to do what we got to do, and she also has a background in health. So
Okay.
so she and my wife both were very very strong, this that, and the other. We opted not to tell the youngest at the
Okay.
time because she is the opposite of my oldest daughter. She's very
Mhm.
fragile, very emotional,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
she was already dealing with being away from home for the first time and having roommates and all those
Right.
kind of things there. But when she did come home, uh, probably towards the end of October, she knew I had a surgery and so forth and so on.
Oh, you had the surgery and she didn't even y'all didn't even tell her? Cause oh,
We didn't tell
wow.
her what we didn't tell. Well, at the time I had the surgery, we didn't know it was cancerous, but it was
Okay.
suspected.
Okay.
But when she finally did come home for the first time, she came in the room, and I was in the bed, and I'm never in the bed unless I'm asleep, right? So she instantly
Mm.
knew
Knew
something's
something was
wrong.
wrong.
Yeah, so she's like, what's wrong with you? And she pretty much came out and said it. And I was on skates at that point, and so I told her, and she immediately broke down and ran over and hugged me, and she had her cry and so forth and so on. And at that time, her best friend's father was dealing with cancer,
Oh.
and it ultimately took kind of he succumbed to it after a
Oh,
period of time.
okay.
So she had watched her best friend kind of go through this with her father. So I'm sure, and
That
she's
was
the
in her
type that
mind.
she worries, and so that was one of the reasons why
Yeah.
we were kind of protecting her. So
Well,
that
we
was
know our kids.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But now my youngest did come back. Um, Let me see, probably maybe 2 years after my surgery, and she gave me I think it was a Father's Day card. And in the Father's Day card, she actually admitted to, she was putting on the front trying to be strong when I got my diagnosis, this, that, and the other, but she was running to her
Oh,
room and crying, but she didn't tell me that, of course, at the time. Yeah. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, wow. So I heard you mention something that I think is very crucial. Faith played a important part in your movement and how you handled everything with cancer. Am I correct?
Pivotal. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. My one of my greatest joys is the fact that I had a relationship with God prior to going through this storm. I couldn't
Mm,
imagine doing it the other way, or how it would have
mm.
impacted me the other way. So I had my faith to lean on, and I remember telling myself, I had shared. My sister was having some health issues, probably about a year before mine, and I remember telling her, we've always been in church. We grew up in church, right?
Okay.
And while we had our years of being knuckleheads and this, that, and the other, we never left
Yeah,
church, right? And
exactly.
so I remember telling my sister, when she was going through that, hey, this is the time to exercise that faith that we've been professing, all these years,
Right.
and it wasn't long after that I had to tell myself that, you know. So, I'm like, hey, I've told that to many other
Pace with your
people.
own words.
Exactly, exactly. I've
Yeah.
gone to visit the sick, and as a part of ministry and so forth and so on, and I've told those people the same thing, and then I had to tell myself the same thing. So I
Wow.
had a very strong family support system, very strong pastor and church support system. Matter of fact, a couple of churches that I've
Yeah.
been involved with, as well as my family
Yeah.
churches. So yeah, I definitely had a great support system.
Okay, now What kind of patient are you? Are you the kind of patient that asks a lot of questions or do your own research?
I'm going to say neither. I think I asked the needed questions.
Okay.
Um, uh, but unlike my wife, I'm not, she will research things to its nauseating, right? And I'm more of, I'm going to trust God. I'm going to trust these professionals,
Okay.
who this is what they do. This, I do want the best care. So I will
Okay.
try to seek the
Right.
best doctors, in terms
Exactly.
of, references and so forth and so on. But I pretty much follow the direction of the doctors and talk to God about any and everything. And
Okay.
that's kind of how I cope with most things.
Well, that's an amazing coping mechanism, if you
Yeah,
ask me.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
pretty
Because
spot on if you
you
can
get to,
do that.
you see so much stuff on the internet and so much stuff that pops up. I'll give you an example. I'm dealing with a illness now, and they have a Facebook page for people who have, I have what's called Meniere's disease,
Can you
and
tell us
that's
what that is before you get? Can you tell us what that is so we
yes,
don't go
yes. So
past that?
Meniere's disease is a condition where you basically get too much fluid built up in your inner ear canal. So in my left ear, I have constant ringing, I have constant roaring, I have constant clogging, or the feeling of my ear being clogged, with fluid. As such, it affects my balance system and causes me to have a lot of vertigo,
Okay.
and vertigo related symptoms. So a lot of lightheadedness, dizziness, and so forth and so on. So as a result of trying to find out more about it, and it does not have a cure. Okay.
Mhm.
As a result of that, I went to this Facebook page for Meniere's patients. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll get on this page and I'll, uh, get some good information, listen to some
Right.
people's stories and this, that, and the other. And I joined the page, I got accepted, and I started to dig in, and it was absolutely depressing.
Oh, wow.
I just, hearing everybody's stories and how, horrible it is and how horrible they feel and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I can't do this,
Yeah.
So
Too much weight.
I
You can't take it on.
yeah, I can't do this. I don't want
Mhm.
that in my spirit.
Right.
I'm gonna deal with it as it comes, and again, I'm gonna talk to God about it. But I
Mhm.
just can't, I can't sit there and just go through all of this, now I'm sure there are encouraging stories on there and so forth and so on, but
Right. Right.
most of what I read was pretty depressing. And I was just like,
Yeah.
this isn't for me.
Yeah. And
So
each thing, every person is different. So you have to walk the path that best suits you.
yeah,
And
yeah,
no
yeah.
judgment.
Yeah,
No
I'm more
judgment.
of the, learn as I go through.
Okay.
I have a little bit more, I have a tendency, and maybe to a fault at some time, I have a tendency to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Mhm.
In terms of the professionals, and I feel like, hey, this is your profession. This is what
Right.
you do every day. And as a professional myself, a professional tradesman, I like to have that same um, courtesy for my customers. They
Yeah.
trust me as the professional. This is what
Yeah.
I do. They don't question it. And so I kind of go about my process that way. And that's what works for me.
And you have to do what works for you. What
Yeah.
type of treatment did you have, if any?
So I had chemo. So once I had the surgery, I went through subsequent testing, including the PET scan and so forth and so on.
Mhm.
And it was determined that I was cancer free.
Oh,
However, my hematologist, I didn't have an oncologist because the lymphoma is a blood cancer, so I had a hematologist.
right.
And my hematologist, she was a older white woman from, I believe, Germany, and she was tough as nails.
Wow.
She was basically like, you are cancer free, according to all of the testing. It hadn't spread anywhere. She said, however, it is a very aggressive form of cancer. So I would recommend that you go through a battery of chemo to try to make sure that we got everything knocked out. And
Right.
so I don't remember what the actual mix I had of
Right. Oh, who
chemo,
does?
um, but it was pretty strong. It was pretty
Okay.
strong. I had six treatments, 21 days apart. So every
Okay.
21 days, I would go to the infusion center and stay and get treatment for about. It usually would take anywhere between 5 to 7 hours
Okay.
to get all of my fluids, and so that
Any
was
side effects from the treatment?
my well, yes, the first treatment I had when I came home that night. I had the nausea, fever, and sickness. And they had told me if that happened to come back to the hospital.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, but I called the on-call doctor and told them what was going on, and they were like, "It'll if it persists, then you can come back to the hospital." So I went on and went to bed, and by the time I woke up the next morning, I felt better. I still had some nausea. I remember teleworking, and my job had let me take off and just telework while I was in treatment. I remember teleworking into the mid morning, and then I started to feel nauseous again, and I signed out. But that was the worst of the um, side
Side
effects
effects?
physically.
Really?
Physically,
Okay.
um, in terms of how I felt.
Okay.
Now uh, about midway through, I lost all of my hair.
Okay.
Didn't have any on the top, but I lost all of my facial hair, all of my body hair, everywhere. So that
Okay.
yeah, that did go away. There's a one of the medications. Forget the name of it. It's red in color, and when you receive it, it almost looks like blood that you receive. It's this red
Mhm.
chemical, and they call it the red devil, and that's the one that's usually associated with the hair loss.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
did, and they told me that my doctors had told me that that was going to happen. So I think what I dealt with the most after subsequent to the hair loss, what I dealt with the most was just the uh, kind of the fatigue.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready
Yeah,
to
but I
ask.
wasn't like beat down where I couldn't do anything. I just kind of felt more drained than anything else.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
could keep going because, I'm also a cancer patient, and
Mhm.
when that fatigue hits me, I can't keep going. So you could.
I could,
You
but
know, push past it.
I had been told, so we have to talk about what keep going looks like. I had
Okay.
been told that, hey, I don't want you out the house, for the most part, if you go out, wear a mask, because your
Mhm,
immune system,
mhm.
becomes deficient.
Very calm.
So I pretty much stayed in, my wife and oldest daughter, they were the police. So they didn't they didn't, so I missed Thanksgiving with the family. I missed Christmas with the family. I just kind of stayed in, became
Okay.
introverted. But I was able to do the things around the house day to day that I needed to do. And, if I needed a nap, I'd take a nap, So I was pretty much myself, other than, just being a little bit more fatigued and not as active as I used to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what maybe one of the hardest moments was for you physically or emotionally, or did you not experience any of that? I know how your faith kept you grounded, but you never had any valleys at all?
No, well, I won't say that. So for me, I'd rather have a broken leg than an upset stomach. Like when my stomach isn't right, I'm not happy. I'm miserable.
Right.
Again, I would much rather have broken bones and this, that, and the other. So when I had that nausea and everything associated with my treatment the first night, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to deal with this after every treatment or between treatments. I
Mhm.
thought that was going to be the case. When I told my doctors what happened, she said that I should not have had to experience that. She said that
Okay.
she said the chemotherapy treatments now are much more advanced than they were in the past. Now, of course, everybody's bodies respond differently. But what she
Yes.
did was she advised me. So I had to take some oral medications um, prior to going to the infusion center. Um,
Okay.
and I'm trying to remember. I think what happened was I only took part of the medication in the morning for that first treatment, and I took the other part of it when I got home. And what
Mhm.
she did was she changed it. She had me to take all of the oral medication the morning before I went to the infusion center. And when I did that on the subsequent visits, I didn't have any more issues with all the nausea.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, I was grateful for that. Um, very grateful for that. That was my biggest
Now
concern.
I do want you to touch a little bit on the what you're experiencing now with the vertical. I forgot the technical name that you gave it, but what you're experiencing now, because I think in previous conversations you learned that it could have been a result of treatments.
Yes, yes. So you're talking about we had a discussion about Meniere's disease, which is
Yeah,
what I'm dealing with now. Um, Let me say one thing before I transition to that, if I can, because you had asked about another
absolutely.
valley. One of my big
Okay.
one of my biggest fears was I'm trying to remember when I was getting the testing. I'm trying to remember whether it was prior to my surgery or after a spinal tap, and I was not
Mm.
looking forward to that. I was not looking forward to that. I had never had one. I'd only heard horrible things about it. I could not imagine a needle in my spine, the whole nine. So I probably prayed about that harder than I did anything. Um,
Really?
yeah, yeah, it
Wow.
was. Yeah, I was really concerned about that.
Okay.
All the way up to you know laying on the table. And actually, when I did have it, it was pretty pain free. I was surprised. I was
Mhm.
surprised and ecstatic that was the case. So that was probably the thing that I prayed about most outside of just
Okay.
being healed and delivered from the cancer.
Right,
In terms
right.
of the procedures, that was the one procedure that that I was most concerned about. All of the
Okay.
other testing, none of that really bothered me. My chemo was given to me through a port, which I had
Mhm.
put in my chest. That was
Mhm.
a minor surgery. There was some pain associated with that for a few days, but I had no problems with the port. I had no problem with receiving the infusions through the port all the way through. So that was those the nausea and having the spinal tap were
Spinal
probably
tap.
the two biggest things for me. Um,
Okay.
so as now we're 8 years, almost 8 years later. We're 8 years later, being cancer free. In the last for close to 5 years, I've been experiencing some issues with a lot of dizziness, lightheadedness, and so forth and so on. And after extensive testing, it was determined that I have what's called Meniere's disease. And as I mentioned earlier, it's the buildup of the fluid in the inner ear canal. They don't know why it happens. They don't know why people get it, and there is no cure. There are some medications that they recommend that you try, and you have to do those over an extensive period of time. You can't just try it for 2 weeks and then they move on to the next. You have
Right.
to try it for 6, 8 months, to see whether or not it makes a difference. So I've done all of that along with low sodium diet to try to manage my fluid levels in my body, even to the point of taking a diuretic daily to try to
Wow.
help manage my fluid levels. Um, so I'm at the point now where I've tried all of the medications. They're not really giving me relief. So I'm about to have what's called a labyrinthectomy. And basically what that is when they go in behind the inner ear and they sever the nerve, the balance nerve going to that ear to stop the issues with the vertigo. Some of my recent now I told you I didn't go into looking into all of this stuff, but I do Google here and there and this, that, and the other. Because
Uh-huh.
the weird
Now
thing is
the
that I'm
truth
trying to
comes
find out.
out.
Yeah, you're trying to find out how did I get this? What I don't have anybody in my family with it. It's
Right.
weird. And so I a few months ago I did kind of look, and I can't remember how I searched it, but I did
Uh-huh.
come across an article that said that sometimes it can be associated with a life-saving medication is how they use the term. And so
Hmm.
I'm thinking, okay, well, chemotherapy is a life-saving medication. So recently I searched chemotherapy and Meniere's disease, and it did come back saying that chemotherapy can bring on Meniere's disease or can trigger Meniere's disease. I do remember when I first went to my ENT about it many years ago, and I was talking to her about it. I made sure that I let her know that I was a cancer survivor and that I had chemotherapy. And what
Right.
she said at that time, she told me, I never forget, she said, um, chemotherapy, these were her words, chemotherapy can have far reaching effects,
Hmm.
meaning that you can have effects as a result of chemotherapy years down the road. So,
Yes.
here I am 8 years later. And I'm not saying that it definitely came from that, but that's the only thing that
It's a
sticks out.
possibility.
Yes, the only
Right.
thing that sticks out in terms of my health history that kind of makes sense.
And that's
So,
what I wanted our listening audience to know. It's a possibility,
yes, yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
and
It's definitely a
um,
possibility.
and that's the truth. Now,
Yeah.
question about medication. After everything was over, all your treatments and all, did you have to take medication for years down the road, or you were just totally finished?
Nope. When I was finished with my chemotherapy, the only thing that I've taken every day since is 2,000 units of vitamin D.
And that was recommended
That was
after.
recommended. Yep, that was
Okay.
recommended while I was in treatment for the immune system strength. And my doctor told me just continue to take it. So I take it every day now. Um, that's the only thing that's attached to my history with cancer.
Okay. Now, Dwayne, earlier we talked a little bit about faith. So I have this question I want to ask. At any point during any of your journey with cancer, did you question God?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I
Okay.
think any person with any humanity, would kind of look at God like, why me? you
Yeah.
know,
Uh-huh.
kind of like, why me? And I'm gonna say this. I guess I want to say this in a manner where it's not coming off as if I'm trying to blow my own horn or this, that, and the other. But I
Do you?
try to live a devout Christian lifestyle. I'm
Absolutely.
very involved in ministry at my church. I serve, the people of the church, in many capacities.
Hmm.
But again, who's to say that I'm not going to have to go through like so many others.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a reality check for me.
Right.
I didn't have the big head or this, that, and the other about any of it,
Right.
but I think it was really a reality check that we all have to persevere through something.
Something.
Yeah, yeah,
It,
we all have to persevere through something. And the thing I try to remind myself is that somebody always has it worse. And
yeah.
if you can keep reminding yourself of that, and you come to the realization that, hey, you just have to deal with what you have to deal with. Uh, because if you dropped your problems on the ground and picked up somebody else's, you might find out that
Got
your
that
problems is
right.
a whole lot better than their problems.
Exactly. Did
Yep.
you ever feel like doing the treatments? Because I know what treatments can do to you. Did you ever feel like giving up, or you always had that fight to
Nah,
fight through?
no, giving up wasn't an
Uh-huh.
option. I think I also had the mind. I remember telling I remember telling a friend of mine this, and he basically told me to shut up. When he found out that I was in treatment, I remember talking to him, and he's like, "Well, man, we're gonna be praying for you." And I don't remember what he said that triggered me to say, well, hey man, if I don't come through this, I've lived a very blessed life. I've been able to do all the things that I
Wow.
wanted to do. You know what I mean? I've lived a blessed life. I had a wonderful family. I remember sharing all that with him, and he was just like, "Man, shut up! You're not going nowhere." And but that I really felt that way.
Right.
I didn't want to transition. I didn't want to go
Because you
away.
didn't know what the end was going to be.
Exactly. But I
Ex-
I have been grateful for, every day. I grew up in Washington, D.C. Um in the I was a teenager in the 80s and the late 70s. And if you know anything about the DMV, at that time it was a drug infested
yeah.
crack epidemic going on.
Yeah.
And I had peers, fortunately, none that I knew really close, but I had peers who aren't here today as a result of being involved in some of those lifestyles.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm when I made it out of that, I had a testimony. Even
Mhm.
before I got to any of this, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
look back and realize how blessed and fortunate I am. And
Absolutely.
I just learned not to take any day for granted, because tomorrow's not promised, and you don't know what you're going to be faced with tomorrow.
Absolutely. Now, were there any surprises as it relates to who showed up for you and who didn't do your through your journey?
No, no.
Nah.
I have a I have a large family.
Okay.
I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of associates. My kids tease me all the time. We can't go anywhere where I don't know somebody, even out of state. I run into people I know. But in terms of my close circle, it's small. It's
Okay.
it's it's tight. I got two or three best buddies. Um, uh, of course, my immediate family, some of my family, of course, I have a huge family, but I'm closer to some of my family than others. You know
Okay.
what I mean? So I didn't have could think of that wasn't there for me um, uh,
Okay.
at the time
Good.
when I felt like I needed them. As a matter of fact, we kind of had to turn people away, um, in
Oh,
terms of
wow.
support. So I really didn't have
Mhm.
any shortcomings. I'll tell you what I did realize and learn through the process is when you're diagnosed with cancer. I had all my treatments done at Washington Hospital Center, and I got to say they were fantastic. All of my visits to the cancer center, even down to the
Mhm.
receptionist, everybody's polite. Everybody seems to understand what you're going through, and have that patience and kind of the attitude of caring. But I learned in the process, they sign you up for a cancer treatment class.
Okay.
And you go to these sessions to kind of learn about the cancer process, the treatment process, and what this center has to offer you. Um,
Mm.
and fortunately for me, I did not have to take advantage of any of the things that the center was offering, transportation,
Wow.
group, group therapy, group sessions, those things. I didn't have to, I had all of that self contained within, my family and my church family and so forth and so on. What I realized
Wow.
is that there's a lot of people who deal with this illness and they don't have anybody. Even when
Absolutely.
I go to my appointments and I'm sitting in there in my appointments and I see elderly people come in there, who they've caught the bus up there. They had to
Yes.
deal with all of this and they had to catch the bus up to the center, and they get there, the bus was running
Yes.
late, they get there and then they miss their appointment. And it's just heartbreaking to realize that,
It
a lot of
is.
people don't have a support system, that they can
Yes.
count on. So it made me even more grateful that, was in a position to do that. And then there are people who I know with cancer diagnosis, I try to do the best I can to be there for them, because I know how
Yeah.
important that support system is.
Well, that's one of the reasons why Cancer Unmasked 360 is in existence. So we can educate people, not just based on your story, but resources,
Right.
community,
Yep.
where they
Absolutely.
can get help.
Yeah.
So that's what this is all about. for me.
Mhm.
Now, did cancer take anything from you and awaken something in you going through it?
Uh, wow, that's a good question. I don't feel like it took anything from me. Um,
Hmm.
I will say that I've always considered myself humble, but I think it humbled me a little
Okay.
bit more just to the
Okay.
realization of understanding that no one is exclusive, from having to go through these trials. I will say, does I feel like I came through my process with flying colors, right?
Mhm.
And I'm grateful for that. And I oftentimes, when I talk and hear other people's story, and I realize what they went through and how they had a lot more struggles than I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you hear about people whose uh, cancer had come back. You know, it's humbling in that nature. I guess that's the best way I could describe it. It really kind of humbles you and helps you to appreciate every day because you don't know what tomorrow holds. And I have to remind
Absolutely.
myself that I actually had an illness that couldn't kill you.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you
Pretty
got
serious.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. When I had
Mhm.
my last visit at the cancer center, they told me usually after the 5 or 6 year period, and it hasn't come back, they consider
Consider
you
you
healed,
cancer free.
cancer free.
Yeah.
So I've gotten that diagnosis, but at the same time, I recognize and realize what I dealt with. I
Okay.
do have. I go back for my annual every year, and they test my lymph nodes and all those kind of things that are common areas for cancer and this, that, and
Right.
the other. And it does remind me that who's to say it won't, but I'm not walking through life with gloom and doom, thinking I'm just waiting
Yeah.
for it to hit. I'm gonna
You're
enjoy
living.
myself.
Yeah.
I'm gonna enjoy myself.
Exactly.
Every
Exactly.
day that I can.
Yes. Yes. You're
I
living.
yeah, I just been, I retired, 2 years ago. So I'm trying to
Good for
live my
you.
best life, as they say, uh,
Hey.
every day, and not take any day for granted. Um,
Yes.
so that's kind of that's kind of how it affected me. But I don't feel like it really took anything from me. Everything that I was doing prior to cancer, I'm still able to do. Um, Fortunately, if indeed the Meniere's is associated with my cancer treatment, then yes, the Meniere's has been more debilitating than my cancer ever was
Okay.
in terms of how it impacts me day to day, what I can and can't do. So I'm
Okay.
at the point now where there are a lot of things I can't safely do or
Right.
responsibly do,
Right. Right.
because
But we'll be better after the surgery.
exactly, exactly. So if indeed it is attached to my cancer treatment, then I can say that okay, that's one thing that has impacted my life, as a
Right.
result of my cancer experience. But outside of that, once I transitioned out, my hair came back, my health came back. I've been pretty much the same as I was before.
Okay, now as we're winding up, I do want to take this opportunity to tell our viewing audience about your collaborative book, When Cancer Knocks at Your Door:
Hmm.
Fight, Pray, Slay. Now, if you can, real quickly, can you tell me about the book and where people can get the book?
Yes. So the book is a group, basically written by a group of authors who are all cancer survivors, with Desi being one of the authors.
Woo-hoo.
Um, and we all share our stories as it relates to our cancer journey. So a lot of what you heard me share here on this podcast is shared in the book in terms of my story. I had no plans on becoming an author. I had no intention of becoming an author, but Desi and I happen to be good friends with our creative author, uh,
Visionary. Yes.
visionary author,
Yes.
LaDonna Stanley Thompson,
Right.
and LaDonna solicited us all to participate in this, and because we love her so much, we were obedient, and it turned out to be not only a blessing for others, but a blessing for us.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so
Yes.
the book, we do have the book available in paperback and hard copy, as well as electronic. And so I believe at the end of the podcast, Desi is going to give some information as to how you can purchase the book if you would so like to.
Well, what they can do is if they can scan my website called QR code on the screen, and if you want the book to support Dwayne Perry, just reach out to me and I'll make sure that I get you the necessary information. How's that?
Great, perfect,
Okay.
perfect, perfect. I also
Now,
would like to say that that book has oh, maybe weapon is not the right word, or maybe it is the right word. That book has kind of become a weapon because I didn't see this when we wrote the book, but every time I hear of someone now with a cancer diagnosis, I make sure I get a copy of the book in their hand. You know,
yes.
and it's
Yes.
my gift to them,
Yes.
because again, I understand all of the emotional battle
Yes.
that goes along with it, along with the physical, and I believe that the testimonies are definitely a matter of very encouraging for anyone, whether you have cancer or not.
Yes.
But certainly, if you are suffering with cancer or cancer is new in your life, that book is definitely could be a blessing to you.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, is there something that you would like to say to men to encourage them if they're fighting a cancer journey? And I know women do, but being a man, I'd like you to speak to the men out there in any encouraging way that you feel fit.
I think first and foremost, I would recommend to any man, go to see your doctor on a regular basis. Have a
Yes.
good relationship with your primary care doctor, especially as you age. After your mid 40s and so forth and so on. Your doctor should be one of your buddies.
Yes.
um, Go to your doctor, get all of the recommended testing. I had no idea, I couldn't even imagine that I would ever be dealing with cancer. It never crossed my mind. Never crossed my mind. Um, and I had been going to the doctor, right? So again, the testing, the going to the doctor is very important. Put your pride aside. Some of the procedures that you have
Yeah.
to get are uncomfortable.
Yes.
Some of the procedures that you have to get, some brothers think is contrary to manhood, but they are necessary
Thank you.
treatments and procedures that only work to your benefit.
Yes.
So I think that's one of the biggest hurdles for men is, our pride. Put your pride aside. Some of us feel like, we have to be the rock. We have to be the one to hold it down. And there's some truth to that, but you can't hold it down without your help.
Yeah.
And that's one of the other things that my cancer journey taught me. You get to a point in life where you realize that your health is the most important thing, and if you don't come to that realization, it will come about on its own, and you'll realize
Oh,
and recognize you can't do anything without your help. So you may
wow.
as well do the best job you can to take care of it.
Thank you so much for that. It is so well needed to be heard in the community of men. Um, Finish this sentence. Cancer knocked butt,
Cancer knocked.
but
Wow. Cancer knocked butt. God knocked back. I take no credit. I take no credit for anything. I give all the glory to God.
I love that answer.
When I came home from my last cancer treatment, my oldest daughter had this big banner, from the floor to the ceiling that said, I beat cancer, and had the cancer ribbons and so forth and so on. And I still have that banner inside one of my closets. And when I open that closet every day, I look at the closet door, it says that, and I love and appreciate it, but I know God
Yeah,
beat cancer. And
I
so
know that's
I take
right.
no credit for anything. I give him the glory and the honor for bringing me through it. And I think that's the best way I could sum it up.
Well, Dwayne, thank you so much for sharing your story and being so open and honest because I believe that's what we need in this hour. And I know that this conversation will encourage someone maybe walking through a very difficult season right now. So I do thank you for your time and for your honesty.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, then.
All right.
Okay. Remember, your story matters. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so we can reach everyone that we can affected by cancer. I'm your host, Desi Waters. Until next time.